Stay calm and party on.
So what does the middle A stand for, Ari? Arrogant?
Abrasive? Argumentative?
Annoying?
Because Hollywood super agent is in the house.
I'm the guy that just got you the James Cameron movie. You want to hug it out? Wow. Yeah.
Now TV presents HBO Originals. Entourage. Sunday night at 10:30 on ViuTVSix. The hottest local news, trending international stories, weekly review, topics that affect our communities, in-depth analyses and opinions. All that you need is in one place. Weekly review. Sunday night at 9 on ViuTV6.
Good evening, I'm Diane in Hong Kong and you're watching ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Government under fire for proposing bumper payouts for bum bids for Kai Tak project. Reports say Russia's telecoms watchdog has blocked social media app WeChat.
Slowly but surely, English is losing importance.
EU head Jean-Claude Juncker targets the English language in the latest Brexit fallout. First up, the government is under fire over a proposal to compensate unsuccessful bidders of the Kai Tak Sports Park project $60 million each. There are expected to be 4 bidders in the running, which means the bid incentive for candidates that aren't awarded the job will total $180 million. At a Legislative Council meeting, officials explained this is a large-scale, complex project, and bidders would need to spend as much as $200 million just to put together a proposal. To encourage more companies to take part, financial incentive is necessary. But lawmakers were at odds with one another about that.
All bidders take risks in bidding for projects, so I don't understand why the government wants to offer such a large amount of compensation this time.
Never have I heard of giving such a large sum of taxpayers' money to commercial organizations.
Yet another Democratic Party member has been barred from entering Macau. District Councillor Ao Chun-Hua, who was leading a tour group, was turned away after arriving at Macau's ferry terminal. He was told he posed a threat to the city's internal security. Ao later said he thinks he was barred because of an expected visit by Chinese leaders next week. Meantime, pro-Beijing heavyweight Rita Fan says there is no reason for the National People's Congress to change its position on the so-called 831 framework regarding Hong Kong's electoral reform. Speaking on a radio show, the former LegCo president called the pan-Democrats lacking in political judgment when they rejected the framework, which would have made the elections for the city's chief executive more democratic. She added that reopening discussions on reforms would be pointless if the Hong Kong government and the pro-democracy camp do not share common ground, and said Carrie Lam would improve the relationship between the administration and pan-Democrats.
She has already put in her political platform that she would she would hope to reopen the discussion on political development by creating a more harmonious atmosphere, a more positive atmosphere in Hong Kong community. But if that atmosphere is not there, then of course you have no grounds for opening this topic for discussion.
And turning overseas, reports say Russia's telecoms watchdog has blocked social media app WeChat, citing information posted on the Russian regulator's website. Roskomnadzor's website says access is restricted based on the country's law on information security. Tencent, which is the owner of the app, is reportedly checking the current status and is in talks with the relevant authorities. WeChat has nearly 900 million users globally and is the latest messaging platform to be blocked by Moscow's media regulator. BlackBerry Messenger, Line and WeChat are also banned. Well, we spoke to technology consultant Noah Silverman, who explained that the move is not just about legal restrictions on information technology.
Okay, well, I highly doubt it's because of the bureaucratic technicality that they're officially citing in the news. I think what's happening is we're starting to see the concept of information sovereignty, where nations are concerned about their citizens' information, both because they want to track it internally for their own political purposes, and they don't want potentially competing governments and economies having access to that information.
And to the latest on the upcoming French presidential elections, candidate Emmanuel Macron's campaign says it's been the target of a massive computer hack. The leak dumped campaign mails online a day and a half before voters go to the polls to choose between the centrist and his far-right rival Marine Le Pen. Havovi Cooper reports.
French presidential candidate Emmanuel Macron's campaign hacked late Friday with a large trove of emails claiming to be from the campaign posted online, less than 48 hours before voters go to the polls to choose the country's next president in a runoff with Marine Le Pen. Some 9 gigabytes of data were posted by a user called EM Leaks to Pastebin, a document sharing site that allows anonymous posting. Macron's political movement En Marche condemned the hack in a statement, saying the En Marche movement has been the victim of a massive and coordinated hack this evening, which has given rise to the diffusion on social media of various internal information. The Macron campaign added that fake documents mixed with authentic ones were released together in an attempt to sow doubt and misinformation before voters go to the polls. Comments about the email dump started appearing on Friday evening, just hours before the official ban on campaigning began. The ban is due to stay in place until the last polling stations close on Sunday at 8 p.m. Opinion polls show independent centrist Macron is set to beat far-right rival Le Pen in Sunday's second round of voting in what is seen to be France's most important election in decades. It was not immediately clear who was responsible for the leak, but Macron's campaign has accused Russia in the past of trying to break into its systems, an accusation Russia has denied.
European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker took a swipe at Britain, calling Brexit a, quote, tragedy. Speaking at a conference on the state of the European Union, he made a point of switching from English to delivering the rest of his speech in French. Juncker told the audience that the 28-nation bloc is not abandoning the UK, but rather the other way round. Brexit talks intensified this week after Juncker reported in the German press Theresa May lived in another galaxy when it came to expectations for a deal, while May accused Brussels of trying to sway next month's UK general election.
I'm hesitating between English and French, but I made my choice. I will express myself in French because slowly but surely English is losing importance.
Coming up next, the latest from the world of business with Pamela Ambler.
Hello there. Well, the French election is on investors' minds. Overnight, Wall Street indexes, the S&P, NASDAQ, and Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at record levels. The S&P 500 rose 0.4% to end at 2,399 points ahead of the key European political event. Energy counters led the gains, and now that earnings season is over, investors have shifted their attentions to macro issues. Fears over Chinese economic growth, persistently high inventories, and fund positioning saw crude oil prices plunge to a 6-month low this week, although assurances by Saudi Arabia Russia is ready to join OPEC and extending supply cuts reverse some of the losses. Chinese manufacturing surveys triggered worries that growth in the world's second largest economy may have peaked in the first quarter. Doubts about the effectiveness of OPEC-led cuts also weighed, and hedge funds are losing faith that OPEC can accelerate the rebalancing of the oil market, even if it agrees to extend output cuts when it meets later this month. Turning to closely watched monthly employment figures out of the U.S., and job growth rebounded in April, while the unemployment rate dropped to its lowest in nearly 2 decades. Fred Katayama reports.
A sharp rebound in the jobs market. The U.S. economy added 211,000 to the payrolls in April. That was a lot more than economists had expected. Also surprising Wall Street, the unemployment rate ticked lower to 4.4%. That's the lowest in almost 17 years. Payrolls increased nearly across the board. Driving those gains, increased hiring in the leisure and hospitality sector, professional and business services, and health care. Even hiring in the struggling retail industry rebounded after 2 months of declines. The Federal Reserve had said this week that the first quarter's slow economic growth pace was likely transitory. Economist Stephen Blitz says these signs of a tightening labor market reflected in the jobs report raises the likelihood the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates in June.
If there was any concern that somehow the economy was slowing to a complete stall based on some of the numbers we saw in the first quarter, this data, this report, should put that to rest.
One caveat, average wages grew 2.5% year on year. That was the lowest since last August. That contrasts with a government report last week saying quarterly wages in the private sector had their biggest gain in 10 years.
Meantime, U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen pointed toward another issue having an impact on the U.S. economy. She says barriers and challenges for women in the workplace, if not addressed, will hamper growth. Speaking at an event titled 125 Years of Women's Participation in the Economy at Brown University in Providence, Yellen added that better paid leave and improving access to affordable and good quality childcare would make it easier for women and men to combine family and career goals. Well, when this man talks, markets listen. So when Warren Buffett said in an interview he'd sold about a third of Berkshire Hathaway's stake in IBM, its shares tumbled. Fred Katayama again with this story.
Legendary investor Warren Buffett told CNBC that he has sold about a third of his stake in IBM. Buffett's company Berkshire Hathaway owned about 81 million shares of IBM at the end of 2016. He unloaded a chunk of that stake over the first and second quarters of this year. Buffett said, IBM is a big, strong company, but they've got big, strong competitors. I've revalued it somewhat downward. IBM stock dropped on the news. It was the Dow's biggest decliner Friday morning. Jenna Blonde covers the story for Reuters.
And Buffett threw in the towel. He essentially said, I can't back my whole holdings onto this. So this is a huge black eye for IBM investors. And I think Buffett may be less abrasive in his words this weekend at the annual meeting on Saturday and come out and be a little bit more supportive of management, because the last thing that you want is for someone like Buffett sell and offload a ton of his stock.
Berkshire Hathaway still owns over 50 million shares of IBM, and Buffett said he has stopped selling. The IBM stake had grown to be one of Berkshire's largest stock investments. Others include American Express, Coca-Cola, Wells Fargo, and more recently, Apple and Kraft Heinz. In April, IBM reported a bigger than expected drop in revenue for the first time in 5 quarters on weak demand in its IT services business.
All right, time now for a break, but don't go away. Coming up, still on our news, shocking footage of how security at a U.S. high school handled 2 black students. Stay with us.
There are magicians in the world who create bridges. They have the power to connect heaven, earth, and us together. They build bridges with knowledge to introduce you to the ancient thinkers, intellectuals,